Chacham want us to have what's called Simchas Yom Tov, to rejoice on Yom Tov. And if on Yom Tov we are allowed to do whatever we want, any type of malacha, so then there's no rejoicing on Yom Tov, because the whole day of Yom Tov you'll be busy in the field, harvesting and picking the fruits off the tree, and there's a lot of work that can be done with food in the field, and there won't be any Simchas Yom Tov. So Chacham said, El Seja said, so we're prohibiting you, we're limiting you from doing malacha on Yom Tov, even though it's with food. And when it came to certain malachas, they prohibited completely. Like, so for example, the malacha of harvesting, which is reaping, picking fruits on a tree, things like that. That's totally prohibited. So there's no exception. There's no situation where, in a certain situation it's going to be permitted. We'll see later there are situations where the Chacham prohibited it, but they said, but if you do it in a shina, in an unusual way, we allow you. But so there's different categories of malachas when it comes to Yom Tov. Certain malachas on Yom Tov are prohibited across the board. The Chacham said, you're not allowed to do this. Even though the Torah allows it because it's food, the Chacham said, we're not allowing this. And those are the malachas that are generally done a lot of the time, mass production. Because it's mass production, so the Chacham said it's totally prohibited. These are things that are done mass production. If we allow you to do it, you'll be busy all day. You'll be working in the field, and there's no joy, there's no rejoicing on Yom Tov. So other examples of this malacha is, we said harvesting. We also said, and also I'm saying now, grinding you can't do. And then there is squeezing fruits, making juice. That's totally prohibited. Though I've seen that those that allow it if you do it in an unusual way, the Alter Rebbe clearly says that that's prohibited. So there's no squeezing on Yom Tov. Meaning, in other words, the same like Shabbos. So whenever we learned about when he's squeezing lemon over salad, right? They have to squeeze it over the salad. All those halachas apply to Yom Tov the same. Grinding depends what type of grinding. We'll discuss it. Like grinding wheat, that's totally prohibited. Grinding other things can be permitted. It depends on what it is, which we'll discuss. So let's go into more specific details over here. So cutting a vegetable salad. You want to cut a vegetable salad, and when it comes to Shabbos, we know it can't be cut very, very thin. It has to be cut into larger pieces, otherwise it's grinding. How does that apply to Yom Tov? You want to grind spices. There's the spice, you buy the spice container in the store that you turn it and it grinds. So the rule is like this. If there's an advantage to doing it on Yom Tov, then the Chacham allow you to do it on Yom Tov. Meaning the food is going to be tastier. However, this doesn't apply to the things we mentioned before. When it comes to, for example, harvesting, reaping, picking fruits off the tree, that doesn't make a difference. It's going to be tastier. That's totally prohibited. However, when it comes to, for example, grinding vegetables, and you don't use the term grinding vegetables, you're slicing the vegetables, but I'm using the term grinding because that's the malach of slicing vegetables thin, grinding. So over there, when you have a fresh vegetable salad, as opposed to making the vegetable salad before Yom Tov and serving it the next day for the next 2 days, it's tastier when you cut up the vegetable salad on Yom Tov. So being there's an advantage to having fresh food on Yom Tov, is more Simchas Yom Tov. So over there, the Chachamim left it alone. In other words, because according to the Torah, all malachas associated with food are permitted. So if is there an advantage doing it on Yom Tov, Chacham said, fine, we'll allow you. But if there's no advantage, Chacham said, no, we're not allowing you to do this. When it comes to, for example, spices, fresh spices is not in the same category like fresh vegetable salad. So for fresh spices, they don't allow you to just do it in a regular way. However, they will allow you to do it with a shina, do it in an irregular way. So if you either you hold it sideways or you let the spices fall onto the table instead of into the bowl, you do it in a different way, then we allow you to do this. Now, what's the reason behind doing it with a shinui, an unusual way? The reason is when you do it the unusual way, it's sort of a reminder that doing melacha on Yom Tov, even for the sake of food, is not a green light. Yeah, Hashem is for free, you can do it. No, there's restrictions. So it brings a person's awareness that you can't just do what you want in Yom Tov. Everything has to be, thought out. Like, why are you doing it? What's the reason? Are you allowed to? Are you not allowed? That's the idea of the shinui, to bring awareness that it's not a green light just to do anything you want in Yom Tov. Then you have the malacha of separating. Boided, separating. So, if you're familiar with the halachas of Shabbos, it'll be easier to connect. Otherwise, we'll have to. You'll tell me I'll have to talk a little more because the malachas of separating on Shabbos is huge. We discussed it. We spent a lot of time in it, going through all the different details of separating on Shabbos. So when it comes to Yom Tov, we're saying that if there's an advantage to do it on Yom Tov, again, we're saying then you're allowed to do it. So then you don't have all those restrictions of Shabbos. So let's put it in a nutshell. So let's say, for example, on Shabbos, you want to cut up a vegetable salad. And before we spoke about cutting vegetable salad in terms of grinding, thin, right? But now the same issue of cutting a vegetable salad also is the malacha of separating, because when you're cutting up a vegetable salad, then you have to cut up a tomato and a pepper, let's say, there's malacha boida separating, taking out the bad from the good, right? So that's separating. When it comes to Shabbos, what's the halacha? The halacha is, you remember the halacha when it comes to Shabbos? Could you? No. When you're cutting up a vegetable salad on Shabbos, are you allowed to do it on Shabbos? You're separating.
You also cut if you leave some of the good. Yeah.
Okay, so if you leave some of the good, then you're not separating. Correct. That's not separating. But let's say you want to do it the regular way, cutting up a tomato, cutting off the bad parts, cutting up a pepper, cutting it up, taking out the bad parts. You're actually separating. In what situation are you allowed to do it on Shabbos? So you have to do what's called samach lachila, close to the time of eating. You have to cut up the vegetable salad and come back from shul, not before you go to shul. Come back to shul, then you do it. Close to the time of eating, it's okay. When it comes to Yom Tov, you don't have that restriction. Because being there's an advantage having a fresh vegetable salad, so therefore we allow you to do it whenever, even before you go to shul. Even though you're separating, because separating is a malacha that the Torah permits you. And Chacham are not prohibiting this because there's an advantage to do it on Yom Tov. Then you have the halacha in terms of, when you put salt into the salad, you may be familiar, you have to also add oil to it, or even put oil beforehand. So the salt does not have any effect on the vegetables whatsoever. It's immediately diluted with the oil. There's some vinegar that helps dilute it. Right? So that's when it comes to Shabbos. What about Yom Tov? So Yom Tov is actually a machlekes. So there are those that say, well, Yom Tov is different. Some say Shabbos. So what do? The halacha is that Yom Tov says, it's good to be strict. So it's a good thing when it comes to Yom Tov that whatever you do for Shabbos in terms of the when you put the salad and the vegetable, you add oil to it to dilute the salt. It's good that Yom Tov you do the same thing, but if someone doesn't, they're not transgressing Yom Tov. Now we all know that before we go to Bish, let's finish with separating. So we gave the example of separating on Yom Tov that we're allowed to do it. But the vegetable salad is an advantage having a fresh vegetable salad. What's another example in terms of boided? And that is you have cutlery. You want to set the table. You want to set the table with the cutlery. Yom Tov morning. Wake up in the morning, Yom Tov in the morning, and you want to set the table, the cutlery. The cutlery is all mixed together because you washed it last night. It's all mixed. You're separating it. They let us separate it. When it comes to Shabbos, you got to wait till you come back from Shul to set the table. When it comes to Yom Tov, what do you do now? So Yom Tov, you could set the table even before you go to Shul. And the reason is because, again, what do we say the rule is an advantage doing it on Yom Tov? The same thing is also if you weren't able to do it before Yom Tov. Were you able to set the table for Yom Tov morning before Yom Tov? Well, there's a meal at the night of Yom Tov. So it's impossible to set the meal before Yom Tov for Yom Tov morning, right? So that's why you're allowed to do it. Because how are you supposed to set it before Yom Tov? It's obvious, but that's the logic behind it. However, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you want to set the table the night of Yom Tov. And the night of Yom Tov, you want to set the table, you're going to set it before you go to Shul. Let's say you're going to set it before you go. I mean, it's not common running to Shul the night of Yom Tov, whatever. But let's say you're going to set the table. It's already night. You want to set the table. The cutlery is all mixed up. Now you're setting the table, and then you're running to Shul and coming back. No, that could have been done before Yom Tov. Could have set the table before Yom Tov. For the night, you could have set before Yom Tov. So now you can't do it. So, in other words, so it falls back to Shabbos. Again, you're not getting stuck in a situation. There is ways how to do it. Like Shabbos. Shabbos, you set the table when you come back from Shul, so it's close to the time of meal. The whole issue of cutlery, keep in mind, is when the cutlery is mixed together. You're opening up the drawer and taking out cutlery. That's the issue. It's all about you just wash it, it's on the drain board, it's all mixed together. So then that's the whole discussion over here. Another example of boider that's permitted on Yom Tov, and that is that on Shabbos we're not allowed to use designated utensils for separating. So even when you are separating in a way where you're allowed to do it because it's close to the time of eating, so you're scooping out vegetable salad, and the vegetable salad is mixed with the liquid, and you're allowed to do it because you're going to eat now. But you can't use a specialized utensil with holes, a perforated spoon, on Shabbos. But on Yom Tov you could. So Yom Tov you could use a special utensil that's designated for separating. However, not all kelim are permitted on Yom Tov for separating. There are certain kelim, I don't have examples, but it's brought in Shulchan Aruch that if it's a keli that's designated to separate for many days, so it's not just a separating for now, like the perforated spoon, it's a keli they use to separate something that you'll be able to stock, you'll be able to have, prepared for a couple of days, let's say. Then you cannot use that designated utensil. Can't think of an example now. Also, you cannot separate on Yom Tov by soaking inside a cane. So let's say I want to soak something in here to separate the bugs from the lettuce, let's say, whatever, or the cake or the fruits are dirty. It fell into the mud. I can wash it, but to soak it inside a keli with liquid, that you can't.
Ever.
Ever. Right. Right. Even before the time of eating. Right. Then what about cooking? Of course you could cook a Yom Tov. What's the question? Well, the reason why you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov is Chum did not prohibit it. They obviously didn't prohibit it, but why did they prohibit it? Because they said there's an advantage having fresh food on Yom Tov. If, let's say, hypothetically speaking, the food you cook today and the food you cooked yesterday is the same thing. Let's say, what if you allowed the Chacham to say no? We don't want you to cook on Yom Tov. That window's not open?
That window is, but he's mowing the lawn.
Oh, okay, you good? So if let's say the food would taste the same, let's say from today and yesterday, you wouldn't be able to come and say, no, we don't want to cook on Yom Tov. Yom Tov is a day we want you to rejoice, not to be busy doing things. That's the reason why we have all these provisions. But because the food is going to be tastier, there's an advantage. She said we allow you to cook on Yom Tov. Therefore, there's a certain type of food. There's fruits, okay? Fruits you cannot cook on Yom Tov. Let's say we want to make fruit soup. People make fruit soup, they refrigerate it. Have you ever seen it? Some people do it in the summer, so they don't have the hot chicken soup schwitzing away. So they make fruit soup, if you put it in the refrigerator, instead of chicken soup, they serve fruit soup. So there's no advantage in having the fresh fruit soup, hot piping fruit soup. No advantage in that. It's not tastier. You put it in the refrigerator, so you cannot cook fruit soup on Yom Tov. You're not allowed. Now, again, this provision falls into the category where we allow you to do it with a shina in an unusual way. But I don't know of any unusual way in terms of cooking. So I haven't seen anywhere where they bring that situation. But theoretically, if there was a way out to put a proper shinui, it would be allowed. Just like with the grinding the spices, it would be allowed to grind the spices with a shinui in an unusual way. Again, the shinui does not apply to many melachos. Like, for example, squeezing fruits, picking fruits from the tree, grinding wheat. Things that are generally done mass production is that we're not allowed to do it even with a shinui. I mean, these other melachos just not practical. Yeah. milking a cow. These are things that is totally prohibited. Obviously, there's a way if someone is on the farm, there's a way to show guy. We're not going into the new. Yeah.
For Pesach, we have walnuts in shells. Can you crack the shells on, like, can I take them out of the shells on Yom Tov?
So first, let's start with Shabbos. Can you do it on Shabbos? On Shabbos, you're allowed to do it close to the time of eating. The Alter Rebbe is strict. The Alter Rebbe says we should be strict and refrain because we might come to muktzah and separating. So the question is how. Yes, Yom Tov in general. You said Pesach. You mean Yom Tov?
Yeah.
Yom Tov have specific Pesach. Thinking about Pesach. Yom Tov. Good question. How do you apply it? So the Alter Rebbe is strict not to do it on Shabbos. One of the reasons is because you might come to muktzah. And being that that's the reason, the same would apply to Yom Tov. In terms of separating, would not be such a no. We'd be saying no. Both reasons would apply to Yom Tov. One, because you might come to separating. The point is, no, be the exact same. There's something that you can do Yeah, it's exactly the same like Shabbos. There's no advantage doing it on Yom Tov. So that's the same. So it's the same like Shabbos, close to the time of eating. Then you have the concern altogether says you shouldn't do it because you might come to muktzah. It's the same. It's the same thing like Shabbos. It's exactly the same category. Yeah. Okay. Now we go to making fire on Yom Tov. We all know we can't strike a match on Yom Tov. The basic halachas of Yom Tov. You can't strike a match, but you can light from one camp to another. Why can't you strike a match? The reason why you can't strike a match on Yom Tov is it's rabbinically prohibited, not by the Torah, because it gives the impression like you are creating something. The Alter Rebbe says it looks like you're creating something new. It looks like you're doing a malacha, so they prohibited it. And combination of the fact that you could have done it before Yom Tov. In other words, the general rule is that anything they could do before Yom Tov, we don't allow you to do on Yom Tov. And well, things that aren't malacha, who cares? You could have done it before Yom Tov. But this gives the impression of malacha. It looks like malacha, and you could have done it before Yom Tov. So you can't do it on Yom Tov. So it's rabbinically prohibited. And that's why if someone is in a difficult situation, there can be situations where you're allowed to ask a non-Jew to strike a match for you. There can be. It shouldn't be taken lightly. Oh, just tell him to light. No, there can be. So lechatchila, you want to make sure before Yom Tov you have fire burning. Either you have your stove, your burners are on. If you don't have a burner, you have electric coils, then you don't have a way to get fire to light candles. So then you have a 24, 48, 72 hour, whatever you need, a fire burning. So you can take fire from there. But in the event that you don't have a fire burning and you forgot or whatever, now you need to light candles. So what do? So l'chatchila, we say get fire from someone else. You have a neighbor, next door neighbor you can go to get fire. You can't use an old match. You have to use a new match. Or you can use a candle. You go to your neighbor with a candle. Now, when you're going to your neighbor with a candle, where's your neighbor? Inside your building? You're living in an apartment building, a condominium. You have neighbors. If it's indoors, no problem. If you're going outdoors, then you have an issue because you're not allowed to walk with fire outside because there's a concern that it might become windy and it will blow out the candle, and that means you're causing it to happen. So there's a way out to do it carefully. If you can walk outside and carefully cover it and you make sure the wind doesn't blow it out, that's how you're supposed to transfer fire on Yom Tov. So you have to keep it covered when you walk out the door. To be more specific, it would seem the big issue is, I guess it should be covered all the time, but primarily as soon as you walk out. What is the concern? That the wind might blow it out. So, but the wind is doing it, not you. Is it considered you're doing it? If the same moment you walk out the door, the wind starts blowing, then it's considered like you did it because you brought it right out into the wind. But after you continue walking, it's not the same. But practically, it's brought down that you keep it covered all the time. I'm just realizing now, as I'm speaking, that the main problem is as you walk out the door, because that's the Alter Rebbe explains that you cannot open a window on Shabbos and Yom Tov opposite your candles burning. Why? Because it might put out the candles. So what, you did it? The Rebbe explains because maybe exactly precisely at that moment, as you're opening the window, the wind starts blowing. Which would then, if that happens, it's like you did it because by you opening the window, you allowed directly the wind to come in. So that's why you cannot open a window or a door, Shabbos or Yom Tov, directly opposite the candle. So in any case, if you're walking out with a candle, you keep it covered, especially as soon as you walk out. But it says it should be covered the whole time because once it's ready, you might as well keep it covered. You're walking out. It could be there's a reason that actually should be covered the whole time. Now, as I'm speaking, I'm realizing that the main issue is right when you walk out, but because afterwards it's not, it's sort of indirectly, but l'chatchila you avoid indirectly also because you did walk out the door. It is becoming because of you, so l'chatchila you do keep it covered the whole time. Okay, understood. Um. Now, is there a way how to light another fire on Yom Tov? So you cannot strike the match. We said you can light from one fire to the next. So if you need another burner on, you only have one burner before Yom Tov, and you want to put out another burner. So if it's coils, you cannot light another burner because you're creating a new fire. You can't even make the coils higher. So you can make the fire high if it's a burner, if it's real fire. But if it's coils, you cannot make it high because it's electric. But you could light from one to the other fire. And that is, there's a way how to do it. If you need another burner, you take a new match, you light from one fire, and then you put on the other fire. You put on the other burner, and if you're assuming you have an electric starter. If you don't have an electric starter, like in the old days, it's just gas. Well, that's simple. You put on the gas, only the gas is on, then you go from one to the next. But now you have an electric starter. You're not putting on a fire electric starter, but there's a way how to do it, and I'm going to explain how to do it. But if you want to make sure you know what you're doing, you want to practice it before Yom Tov, before you do it on Yom Tov. Basically, when you turn the burner, you go quickly and you bypass the electric starter. So when you're turning it on, there's a click, 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 the electric starter. You turn, you go quickly till you bypass the electric starter. And now at this point, it's only gas. Now, usually we don't do this, just leave it like that. This gas not healthy. But for a couple of seconds, you leave it there, and then you take a match, a new match. Don't use an old match. Old match is muktzah. You go from here, you like this. The drawback is that you might end up having a fire that's too high. If you don't know what you're doing and you're not careful, fire's too big. Then in Yom Tov, you can't lower the fire. You can only make it higher. Generally speaking, there's an exception to the rule which we'll discuss, but usually you cannot make it higher. So it's something you have to be aware of that you're going to be doing it. This is what might happen. So you have to have experience doing it to be able to do it.
Can you use a candle? Like, can I use the same candle to light the stove every time?
Use a candle to light a stove. A candle from where?
Meaning we have an existing flame and
Yeah.
use a candle to
Oh, to
Like-
take the candle from the existing flame,
Yeah.
like the 24-hour candle, whatever.
yeah,
Go from there
yeah.
and then turn it on till
Yeah.
bypass the electric starter, whatever, and then go like that. Yeah.
No, and then the candle I use,
What do you do
you
with
put
it?
it down. If it goes out, is that muktzah or is it just old matches that are?
Oh, you're asking a candle that was extinguished, is that muktzah? No, it's reusable.
Okay.
An old match is muktzah because usually, people don't reuse matches.
If it's the long ones.
If it's the long ones, but what do people usually do with the long ones? They usually throw it, it's usually garbage. Because it's usually garbage, so by default it is muktzah. Unless a person specifically planned it out in a certain way. But otherwise it's muktzah. So extinguishing. So you cannot extinguish a fire, and that's why when you light Yom Tov candles, the same like Shabbos, after you light it, you put it down, you don't extinguish it. By the way, there is some people use the one you click, you press it down, and then you light with it. So there's an issue with it, because after you finish lighting it, then you let go of it, and it goes out. So it's not a chatchila to you understand, because even though you're just letting go, but now you accept Shabbos, the Yom Tov, then you're letting go, it causes you to go out. That's why those things are not practical when it comes to Shabbos and Yom Tov. Now, there is a way how you could extinguish on Yom Tov, and that is if the food is going to burn. So let's say you need the food to be on the fire, and the food needs the fire. Sometimes the food doesn't need the fire anymore, so you just take the food off the fire. But if the food needs to be on the fire, but the fire is too big, it's going to burn the food. So then, if you don't have any other fire, that's the only fire you have, and you're not able to make another fire, we just explained before, there's a way to make another fire. Make another fire, like I explained, make another fire. If you can't make another fire, you're not able to, it's not going to, you don't have that possibility. So then, and if the food is going to burn, but the food still needs to be on the fire, just you don't want it to burn, so then you're allowed to make it lower. Only in that situation are you actually allowed to lower the fire. There is another situation, and that is sometimes you have a very high fire and it's hot. Shavuos, let's say it gets very hot, and you didn't set the air conditioning, you weren't on top of things, and it's very hot, and the fire is full blast, and you're schwitzing away, and it's so hot, and you would like to put out the fire. One way actually is you can ask a non-Jew, by the way. You could call in a non-Jew, and you don't have to, not directly. There's no need to tell them directly. You can avoid it, but you just tell them it's very hot in here. You're actually allowed to tell them. So this is so usually we don't tell a non-Jew to do malach on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but this is an exception. We are allowed. The other thing you can do is, if let's say you need a coffee, or you want to drink coffee, you decide now I'm going to have coffee. So you fill up a pot with water, fill up the full pot with water, fill up till the top, and fill it up in one shot. Don't like with cups keep on pouring because then it's just like separate acts, like one act. Put on the fire, and you're cooking water because you're going to drink coffee. You will drink coffee. You'll use the water from it to drink a coffee. It boils, and then it boils. After it boils, it starts boiling over. After it boils over, the fire will go out. So you're allowed to do that because it's called an indirect act. Part of the reason why this is allowed is because there's a mechitza between the fire and the water. That's part of the reason. It's part of the condition why you're allowed to do it in such a way to cause fire to be extinguished. Because there's something between the fire and the water, and also because there has to be a reason. You can't just do it for fun. You know what? I don't need a fire. I'm going to save a few pennies. Unless it's a big loss. I don't know if it's called, I'm not sure if it's in the category of big loss. If it's a big loss, let's say it's a big fire, is it a big loss? What is it going to cost you to keep it for fire on? $5, $10? I know it's called a big loss. Not sure if it's in that category. But there has to be a good reason. So a good reason, the best of my knowledge for most people, a good reason is because it's very hard, you're very uncomfortable. So you're allowed to do it. Or, like we said, you can call a non-Jew and tell them it's very hot in there and if it can help you out. Definitely better to do it through a non-Jew, because whenever you're doing it through a non-Jew, even though he's doing it directly, but you're not at all doing anything. Because that's definitely a better way if you have that option. That's definitely best. Yes.
At my house, we have 4 burners. For the food, if it's burning, you can only do it if all 4 are in use. Because we try not to have more than one on.
Right.
We always try to cook with only one. So we don't have 4 burners on.
Right. So, but if you're able to put on another burner,
yeah,
you have that option, then you don't have that leniency. There are opinions who are lenient, even not, that they say there's no difference. The Igros Moshe holds like that. He says, even if you could make another burner, but he says, either way, you're doing a malacha. Here's fire, distinguishing from the Alter Rebbe, it's not very clear what the Alter Rebbe holds, but it seems that the Alter Rebbe would be strict. The Alter Rebbe says, if you don't have another fire, it's not clear what the Alter Rebbe holds. But it seems Alter Rebbe is leaning towards, in other words, you could take out from the Alter Rebbe's words, Alter Rebbe might be strict in this case. Because the Alter Rebbe says, if there's no other fire, there is another fire. So maybe Alter Rebbe is talking about a case where it's not possible to make another fire, but we're able to make another fire. Back then, the situation was, there's no other fire. Make another fire. It wasn't so simple to make another fire. This was the fire they had. It was different then. These days it's much easier. So that's why I'm saying from the Alter Rebbe it seems that the Alter Rebbe is strict about it. So if you can make another fire, that's how you should do it. Okay? The questions? Yes.
This is are we allowed to start listening to music tonight or?
No, it's not exactly off the topic. It's on the topic of Shavuos. It's connected to, yeah. So tonight, starting from tonight.
I like all the restrictions.
Yeah. Haircuts, according to the Arizal, we don't take until Erev Shavuos. So you're allowed to take haircuts tonight, but the Arizal was strict not to take till Erev Shavuos. Some say till the morning, some say the night of Shavuos is also good, like Motzei Shabbos. Okay, and there's no tachum. There's no tachum until Yud Beis, including Yud Beis. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.